Ernesto Martinez, costume designer for Fight Night, The Million Dollar Heist. Luca Mosca, costume designer for The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. And Negar Ali-Kline, costume designer for Nobody Wants This. All
Ernesto,
right.
we didn't get a
Okay.
chance. We had a little 10-minute chat before. So Niger and I have an advantage over you. But I wanted to say congratulations for your fabulous show. It is a feast for the eyes, and it was beautiful to listen to your interview and go and, just hearing it from you. It was fantastic. Every single piece. It was really beautiful.
That
Well
is
done.
so kind of you. Thank you. And the same to both of you. I mean, I saw both your shows and they're really hard work. I can't imagine working with all the tooling that you have to do on armor, and you have a lot of background as well that is incredible on Rings of Power. It's Rings of Power, is it right?
Rings of power, yeah. But Ernesto, you have so many people doing the work. It's almost like when you described so well your feeling of gratitude for people who dress the background in the street and they do it so well. On some level, when I go to set and I see all this background, I have the same feeling because Anya Jane Maggi, she's the background designer, really, and she does all this excellent work. And you go to set and you see all the magic that someone else has done. So it just, yes, it is a large show, but with a large amount of people who do the work, who take the lead. And so it's more of a, at this point, it was more of a creative director position where you had to say yes or no to things because someone else was doing them. So, yeah.
And they also give you the scale. The scale of
Yeah.
everything is really the background, it makes everything so much
Yeah, yeah. And
better.
you use the word scale, and also Chris, you used the word scale before. But scale is something that we do, meaning if you have an elf, you do the costume for the human, and then you hire a giant, literally, somebody who is 7'5", and so you have to scale in proportion the costume. So you have to make a print which is 45% larger to be on that costume. Or if you have a dwarf, you do the same thing and you scale it down. So when you guys use the word scale, I get PTSD because I remember how difficult that was. But again, there's people there with calculators and everything that shrink everything or enlarge everything in order to make it up to scale. Maybe that's one of the most difficult things that were done on Rings of Power.
Do you guys have you guys talking about this? Do you guys all are you you're watching the other people like when you're watching shows, are you noticing these kind of things as costume designers, and how much work goes into everything? On all of your shows are obviously different. You have a contemporary show, a period show, a big epic fantasy show, but are you guys are you noticing these things and knowing how difficult it is to do this at this level?
I get
Absolutely.
anxiety. I get anxiety from looking at my colleagues' work because I know how much has gone into that, and I know exactly what the struggles were, where their successes are, and how good they have been in achieving all of that. When I saw Niger's work, at Nesto's work, immediately, anxiety central, because I know exactly. And so I cannot watch a movie or a TV series like a normal audience because I know exactly. I know what the costumers are. I know what the camera is. I know what the drama is. I know what the trucks are. There's too much. I get too involved.
Ernesto,
How
you
about you
agree with
guys?
that? Yeah.
Okay, so full disclosure, I watch everything. I watch everything. And I really watch things that I think are going to be interesting. So I've seen, your work on with Kristen Bell. I've seen your work, because I enjoy these shows on a personal level. So I really look at the costumes. And so I know the work, and it's been great. You know, both of you like do fantastic work. I saw all the subtleties in the rabbi, because I kept wondering, how is she going to make this guy really sexy and cute? And you did a great job. And your work is like, you know, the action and the you know, just like the scale of what you do and the green screen. I know that they do AI and they multiply, you know, all these characters, you know, but it's still amazing, and the aging on the work is fantastic. You know, your BG person is really great. So, you know, I watch everything and I judge everything. I do. So
But
I'm
you
being
know,
really honest.
Ernesto, at this point, when I see a bad costume, I used to say, oh, that costume designer. Now I said, that poor costume designer, see what they put her or him into the condition of doing. I'm no longer blaming the costume designer. I know that there's been an army of chefs in that kitchen
Yeah,
who led to that specific costume.
yeah,
Right,
yeah,
because
for
you
sure.
understand what's going on behind,
Yeah,
you know, what
totally.
the process
Totally.
is like, and what the costume designer is up against oftentimes. Conversely, you know, I watched a couple of scenes early on, and when you see something in your own work where you're like, oh, that was a bit of a mistake, and then you know, people on your team say, well, no one's going to notice. No one's going to notice that. The audience doesn't look for that. And I was like, no, but my peers are going to notice, because that's what they are. They have trained eyes and they will see that. And obviously, you know, you care about, you know, what your friends think. So yeah, very much so. I mean, you watch these shows and you're just like, my mind is blown as to how you wrapped your arms around a project like this and reined it in. It's just so massive. Both of you, you know, to just do all of this custom work is just, I know what goes into it. So I'm incredibly impressed and admire you both so much.
Can
Luca,
we
I think you, oh, go
all,
ahead, Luca.
thank
Sorry.
you.
No, go ahead.
Can we all agree, Ernesto and Niger, that continuity is the biggest nightmare of our profession?
Yeah.
It's
No,
so hard.
I kind of learned that from the beginning. So like, as soon as whatever I have in my hands, I make for whatever it is I'm holding. If I have 10 scripts, I'm going to do 10 episodes. That's it. Like, you know, it's just going to happen up front. You never know, especially when they crossboard, what they're going to pull. So you
Right,
have to be
right.
ready for everything. And I kind of like making things now. You know, I used to shop a lot. Now, even on like modern things, I'm making a lot of the wardrobe. It's just become, because of the lack of inventory in the stores
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
I mean, you must have run into that like horrendously on your show.
Oh, it's getting harder and harder. I mean, you guys,
Yeah.
you know, it's just getting harder and harder to source things. And in the time that you need it too. So yes, oftentimes doing it custom really is the only way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easier and you get what you want, but you know, and the time, you know, I have really good people here. We must all use the same people, because it's only a handful that are like really great, you know. And then, you know, always have somebody in-house, one or two that just do everything in-house. But the builders we have here are, you know, great. So I'm back to that. You know, it's just become a lot easier to build than to shop even. And that's a kind of sad.
Look, I think you mentioned this, and maybe Ernesto too. I think, well, you talked about the importance of having a great team too. I guess, right? Like in your whole department that you're working with. How do you guys like kind of like decide? Like, what do you look for when you're building out your team for these projects? And like kind of like how do you like what are you looking for from the people who you're going to be in the trenches with on these shows?
Well, in the trenches is a really good way of putting it, because that's exactly what it feels like. You know, you're just in it together, and you spend every day together, like 12, 14 hours, oftentimes, sometimes more. And your team is everything. I mean, it's just everything. And I was so lucky to have such a great team, because not only were they hardworking and so good at what they do, they were fun, you know, it's also like a personality thing, you know, you spend so much time together and you want to just be around people that have great energy and, you know, bring bring that to the table as well. So yeah, I mean, the team is everything. I mean, I can't overstate that enough.
You know, I got to tell you that, and still, I've been doing this a long time. I'm probably older than everybody here, but I still can't believe that they pay me to do what I do. Like every job I get, and I'm doing one now that is like pretty incredible. And I always, like at the end of a fitting, or I'm at the end of a good, a good fitting with an actor, whatever, and you look at their work and you think, wow, I'm working with this guy or this girl, and we have this rapport, and I go, and I'm getting paid for it, but they're so they must be out of their minds. It's like a mistake, right? Like this can't be real. And it's still 30 years later, and I still feel the same way. So for me, my team they always seem to have the same feeling that I do about being and just doing what we do. And I'm just grateful to be here and to be doing this. There's not a lot of places in the world that get to do what we do on this level and on this kind of scale, and to meet interesting people all the time and creative people. And I just feel very fortunate. And I don't know, do you guys feel the same?
Oh,
I do, yes, very much so. Very grateful. Yes, I mean, all these years, and I still love what I do, it's
Yeah.
just, it's a great feeling to be able to say that. Like, I love my work. I love telling these stories. I love collaborating with, other creative people. And yes, I agree with you 100%.
And I say that because I feel that the crew that you have and that you get along with, they also feel the same way. Like, my assistants and my wardrobe supervisors are always like, oh my God, I can't believe we're getting paid to do this. Like, they're crazy. Yeah.
For me, talking about team qualities, the absolutely most important thing, even before skills, is really the level of personality. And like you said, you live 12, 14 hours together, sometimes together in a truck. So there's no, like, you're really elbow to elbow. And it's so important that people have the same MO as you do. And there's not really much room for attitude or bad behavior, because then it becomes really hard. And one thing that you said, Ernesto, the level of like almost bewilderment of being with the most skilled craftsmen in America, in the country, in the city where you are, and not just from the costume point of view, but the level of those camera people, lighting people, or production designers, set designers. It's just incredible. So on top of working with wonderful people, we also get the privilege of working with the most gifted minds in the industry. So that's really stimulating. And I think that it makes us better people ourselves just by osmosis.
Just by association.
By association, a good association.
How about working with actors and stuff? Obviously, you guys all are working with like really talented actors, and like I'm sure like it depends on the project, obviously, but like Negar, like you were saying, like obviously Kristen Bell's gonna have like her own style and stuff, maybe, or whatever. Like, how do you kind of like work with them, and like what kind of collaboration are you looking for? I'm sure some actors that you've worked with in the past are way more into this, right, than others, I would imagine, right? Or maybe they like are they? So I guess like yeah, how do you kind of work with them and individualize it to make sure each performer is feeling like valued, I guess, in terms of their costumes,
Yeah. I mean, I think my background in fashion styling really helps with that, in terms of like working with actors in a very intimate way. I really take the cue from the actor, right? So the way that the fitting is going to go, and sort of whether or not we're going to have, I mean, honestly, it comes down to even if we're going to have like small talk or not, like I let them set the tone of how they want to, just the vibe of the fitting, if you will. I mean, I go in extremely prepared. I mean, I have a very, like, I know exactly what I would like them to wear for every scene. And that's all sort of decided beforehand. So I go in with loads of ideas, but then at the same time, I'm very open to hear their ideas, because ultimately Kristen has to wear that costume and perform in that costume. And she knows better than anyone what's going to feel right to her in that scene and in that moment. So in that sense, it's very collaborative, and I'm very open and happy to listen. Like Adam had a lot of, opinions very early on about how he wanted to approach his character. And I love that. I want to take all that in and sort of synthesize it and then kind of interpret it in the way that I think, in the way that I think. So yeah, I think it's different with every single actor, right? So I try to just kind of, and that's where we're therapists and psychologists, and we sort of like intuit what they want and how they want to, how we want to address this and go from there.
Ernesto, how about you? Obviously, with a lot of big names on Fight Night for sure.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of people, and I totally agree with you. I do the same as you. I like, depending on the level of the talent, I'm going to treat Hugh Jackman differently than I'm going to treat Sam Jackson, but I will definitely let them take the lead in a fitting. I know that I've come in and I've set a tone. I've done sketches. I've done all of that, but all of that can go right out the window if the person or the actor does not feel comfortable in what it is. They get the boards ahead, they get the designs ahead, and it can all be, yeah, sure, I love it, I love it, I love it. And when we get to the actual process and the actual build, it doesn't work. And, you just have to start from scratch. And it's, and you can't push your ideas and the studio's ideas on an individual. You really have to be collaborative, and you have to stay open and willing to change whatever. At the end of the day, it's really not my movie. It is a studio movie, and that's where, that's how you take your cue, what's going to work for the actor. And most seasoned actors really do know what looks good on them, what's going to work for them, how they're going to perform in it, whether it's singing, whether it's action. Things have very different needs. Costumes are costumes, and they all have such different needs. Right now I'm doing a musical, and it's like crazy, like nothing I've ever done. So, and it's a learning process. I'm like, well, how did I get this? And it's hard, I'm learning as I go along, oh, sequence don't stretch. Okay. Oh, they do stretch. That type of stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. Luca, how about you? Obviously, like Lord of the Rings, there's maybe less flexibility for the actor to have their own input, but at the same time, I'm sure you have to make them feel comfortable and like get them maybe to understand their character in a way that maybe they didn't previously, right? With the costumes, is that right?
Yes, it is right. And one thing that I would like to add to the wonderful thoughts from Negar and Ernesto is that when I am in a fitting room, I have the responsibility, the duty to acknowledge that an actor is vulnerable in front of us, because you ask the actor to undress, you see the actor with all the physical flaws, if you want to call them such. You measure the actor. So it's a very delicate moment for an actor. So I want to be extremely mindful of that, because it's easy to be there in your beautiful outfit, my outfit, and say, no, put this on and just go for it. But no, it's not that evident. It's a moment of great vulnerability for the actor. So I think that we are all mindful. This is what Ernesto was explaining as well, and Negar. And it is not our movie at the end of the day. It is someone else's project. And we are not painters in a room by ourselves, but it's teamwork. And we have to listen. And I loved how you called yourself, Negar, a psychologist, because I feel like we do a little bit of therapy in there as well, or definitely our intuitive pointy caps are worn all the time. Because we need to anticipate, we need to understand, it's a ballet. When we get into that fitting room, we are performers, psychologists, costume designers. But as you can see, I put our profession as the last
Psychics.
of the skills. Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Not behind craft service.
Yeah, exactly.
We could probably keep doing this for another hour, but we do have to wrap up there. This is so much fun, but I just want to thank you all again. Ernesto Martinez show is Fight Night, The $1 Million Heist. You can watch those episodes on Peacock. Luca Mosca, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, all those episodes on Amazon. And Negar Ali-Kline, Nobody Wants This, the great comedy series on Netflix, all episodes streaming there. Thank you all so much for doing this. It was really great hearing you talk to each other about this profession. It was so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
nice to meet you all. Really, really a privilege. Thank you. Thank you.
Likewise, Ernesto, Negar, and Chris.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
That was
Bye.
great. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.